Welcome to our session, Activism. Actually, I am delighted to welcome three phenomenal women who have been creating change in their communities, their countries, and in the world. So obviously the first question has to be, how are you doing with everything that's happening? And also, where are you? And how does it differ in terms of what you feel is going on right now, but also what you feel can happen going forward?
I am currently in Mumbai, India, and how am I doing? Honestly, I've been doing much better since lockdown, since the forced nationwide lockdown. I know, and the reason being, before we had the lockdown, a lot of activists were leading a nationwide peaceful protest against the Citizenship Amendment Act, which was enforced in India. So my day today was, high adrenaline and just working on the ground. But since lockdown, I have had time to just take a break, be kinder to myself. It's good for me, but it's very much in contrast to remembering that currently, we're celebrating activism actually, but currently activists, frontline human rights defenders are being arrested, jailed, and institutions that we thought would serve to protect citizens are very much being weaponized by authoritarian regimes to suppress dissent and suppress the voices of activists. So it's a difficult time.
Well, we thank you for your bravery, Trisha. So if we come to you next, Emmy, where are you and how are you?
Well, I live in New Haven. How are you is always a very difficult question to answer. And I definitely think that a lot of times it's really hard to reconcile what's going on a global level and a personal level, especially for me as someone who is a survivor from Darfur, from a lot of different areas, and I'm also now an advocate and an activist. I do feel really inspired by what's going on right now and how a lot of people are standing with Black people and they're standing with refugees. My biggest fear is that after all of these protests and all of these killings and everything, people will just come away, and people in power will come away feeling like they can disengage or distance themselves with simple gestures like posts on social media or something. But hopefully the young people are pushing back against that. So all of us.
Can I ask you, Emmy, you say that one of your biggest fears is that after all of the protests have died down, that, the meaningful action doesn't happen. But there's something about this time that feels different. What do you think is different?
The big difference right now is that people are learning for the first time the toll that it not only takes to support the movement, but to actively be on the front lines. It's also vindicating and affirming to see that when we all stand up together, when you have not just Black people, but people who are white, people who are people of color, people who are marginalized in other ways, standing for Black people.
Emmy, I'm going to move on, but thank you. And thank you for your just dedication to this. So Amika, let me come to you. I'd love to ask, in the same way I've asked Trisha and Emmy, how are you and where are you? I know where you are because you're in the same place as me. But how are you, first of all?
Thanks. Yeah, so excited to be here. Yes, I'm in London. I'm at my family home in North London. I would, if it hadn't been for the pandemic, be at university. What I find really inspiring about the current moment is that activism has become something that everyone's doing so actively despite the circumstances. People on my social media feed who, maybe never posted before are posting links to petitions, participating in online events or webinars, and I find that so incredibly inspiring. And because of the internet, activism is so accessible, so anyone can get involved.
Amika, it's so wonderful to hear you say that. It's so clear that your generation thinks very differently to their parents and the generation before. And I'm interested to find out from you, what do you think did that?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think social media and the internet and our kind of interconnectedness worldwide definitely plays a part, but all these issues are coming to a head, and yet it feels like politicians only care about certain things that seem so distant and unimportant and just kind of, or less important than the things that are really pivotal right now. So many of us still can't vote or participate in a traditional politics. And that's why activism has taken off, because our phones are our alternative to a vote. And that's why I think my generation and young people are so fired up, because we're not really trying to go through a middleman. We're trying to just do it ourselves and take to the streets and use our phones. And I think that's what's hopefully going to bring us forward and enable us to actually make that change.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. Final question. The whole theme of everything that we're doing here today is looking at how we build back better. Can you tell me, Trisha, let's back to you. How do we build back better together? And what does that look like? And how do we make sure that the global goals are also woven into that?
To set the context, I think the reason why we feel that this is a time of great potential of pushing for change is because what I'm noticing is a sense of celebration of righteous anger. Not only are we celebrating righteous anger, we're also rejecting fear and rejecting politeness, right? Because look, politeness hasn't gotten us anywhere. Young people know this better than any demographic, because they're not programmed to be deferential to status quo. The thing about the global goals is when countries pledged to adopt the global goals in 2015, they also made a commitment to leave no one behind. That's the commitment I hold the most dearest to me. And when I say countries made that commitment, it gives us as right holders the position to demand for accountability from duty bearers, and demand for accountability unapologetically with a sense of urgency.
Brilliant. Trisha, thank you so much. We will build back better together. And last but by no means least, Emmy, how do we do that?
I guess it really means a lot to think about all of these things, and also just to call back to the core issues, which is that the things that we're facing nowadays are all a direct result of our whole societies in every country being built on a foundation that is fundamentally flawed. I definitely think that if we don't address the issues on a systemic level and on every level, we won't be able to move forward or build back better in any way. And I love the global goals, and I love all of the other systems that we use to try and turn the fight for justice into actionable items so that people in power can actually deliver on them. But what I love about activists and what I love about our role as activists is that we're able to push that a little bit further and create meaningful collaboration on every level. The last thing I will say about the pandemic is that it brought to light something that's really beautiful, that we all have a shared humanity. I'm hoping that that sense of camaraderie and humanity will be the way that we move forward, and will be something that we spread on a systemic level.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Emmy, thank you. Thank you all so much. This has been a thrilling conversation, and I think a conversation that will inspire a lot of people to act. We have many business leaders, we have many leaders that will be watching this session, and I think the central theme that's come out of this is enough of the talk. It's time to actually make a difference. So thank you.